Jesus called his disciples, my brothers. I ascend to my Father and your Father. It was a special relationship now. Before that, he would only speak about my Father, or sometimes about your Father, but never combined the two and said, my Father and your Father. The first time he said that was after his resurrection. Because he says, now, you guys are my brothers. I'm the eldest brother. And that's why Jesus is not the only begotten Son of God today. That was before the day of resurrection. That's why the resurrection of Christ is so important. Today he's the firstborn. Because I am his brother too. And what is the consequence of that? Romans 2, verse 11. There is no partiality with God. How does that affect us? Well, I apply it to my own life. I have 4 sons. And I have never done, God is my witness, to the best of my ability and knowledge, whatever I did for my first son, I tried my best to do for all my other 3 sons. I did not love my first son more than the others. Now, I know some parents have got partiality towards one of their children for one reason or the other. But I knew that I had to represent God to my children. And the little children, their first understanding of God is from their father. In the strictness and kindness of their father and grace and truth that they see from their father, they're supposed to see God. And I realized that if I have to represent God correctly, I must be absolutely impartial to all my children. And anyone who's not impartial towards his children is not like God. And I have tried my best to be that. Anything I did for my oldest son, I would do for all my others. And from that, I learned a great truth about God. That what he did for his eldest son, he would do for me. The eldest son is Jesus, firstborn. There is no partiality with God. What he did for Jesus, he will do for me. If I fulfill the same conditions. Yeah, there are conditions. Even for Jesus, there were conditions. Because when he came to earth as a man, let me show you some amazing verses. Why was Jesus exalted to the highest place in the universe so that at his name every knee should bow? It's not because he was the Son of God. Let me read it to you in Philippians 2. Being found in appearance as a man, verse 8, Jesus humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Humility, obedience, death to himself. Therefore, verse 9, God exalted him. That was a condition. He will exalt me too. Humble yourself under the mighty hand of God that he might exalt you in due time. Why did God hear Jesus' prayers? Was it because he was the Son of God? Let me read to you. Hebrews chapter 5, verse 7. In the days of his flesh, that means during the 33 and a half years he was on earth, Jesus offered up prayers and supplications with loud crying and tears to the one who was able to save him from death, and he was heard because of his godly fear. I can be heard too if I have godly fear. So there were conditions. So everything that God did for Jesus, he will do for me if I fulfill the same conditions. If I humble myself, he'll exalt me. He will care for me as he cared for Jesus. You know, this brought such security into my life. This is what it means to know God as Father. Jesus was not in a panic if there was a storm in the sea. It's amazing how he was so much at rest. You know that instance in Luke chapter 4, you read there, that verse 28, all the people in the synagogue got furious, didn't allow him to finish his message, grabbed a hold of him, and it says in verse 29, all those, maybe 200 people in that synagogue, caught him and took him, verse 29, to the hill on which the city was built to throw him down. 200 people gang up on one man. take him to a cliff to throw him down because they're angry with what he preached. And the next verse says, but passing through the mist, he just quietly went his way. How in the world did that happen? It was not like it says Philip was taken up once and taken out in Acts chapter 8. No, it wasn't like that. Well, Jesus wasn't lifted up and taken out by some angel. He quietly passed through and went his way, and I've meditated on that. I stop at some places and say, how did that happen, Lord? I don't know. But this is my guess. Maybe there was an argument among these 200 people as to which particular cliff to throw him down. Was it this one or this one? And you know what happens when people get in an argument like the Democrats and the Republicans, tooth and nail at each other. And while this discussion was going on, Jesus quietly went away. And by the time they decided which cliff to throw him down, they look around, he's not there. I say, Lord, what you did for Jesus, you'll do for me. When I have to deal with angry people. Once Herod tried to kill him when he was a helpless baby. God took him out of danger. I've experienced that. In India, where people tried to harm me. I didn't know anything about it. God took me out of the way. I live in a security because of one truth I've discovered. God loves me as he loved Jesus. He's my elder brother. I'm a younger brother. And what he did for Jesus, he'll do for me. They shall not teach each other, their neighbor, saying, know the Lord. All shall know me, from the least to the greatest. You say, oh, Brother Zach, that's because you've known the Lord so long. No, it says in Hebrews 8, from the least. Were you converted this morning? It's for you, brother. It's for you. As many as received him, to them he gave the authority to be the children of God. Why have you allowed the devil to rob you of that perfect security that will free you from anxiety, that will enable you to obey the command, rejoice in the Lord 24/7, Philippians 4:4. I have begun to taste a little bit of that since I discovered this security. This is the new covenant. It's far better than health and wealth, I'll tell you that. People with health and wealth live with so much tension and anxiety. But this is so much better.